Hey guys, my name's Chris, and this is Financial Fitness, and I'm back with my good buddy Otterpod. He lived through the hyperinflation in Romania, and he's full of wealth. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I wanted to ask him about clothes. Can you expand on how it was with your clothes? Were they hard to come by? What was the deal with clothes? We've covered food. If y'all haven't seen that stuff, go to the other videos because we're going to cover all these things that have happened in the history. That way we don't have to live through it again, hopefully. How was clothes?
Right. So you have to take a look at the economy and what the country is producing. And in our case, in Romania, it was really part of the Soviet bloc. It was a satellite state of the Soviet Union. And in there, it was centrally controlled from Moscow, which country is better for what and where they grow what, right? Ukraine is the breadbasket. Romania had minerals. We grew also other stuff. So based on that centralized control, we didn't have any clothes locally made in Romania, or very little, because it was imported from Kazakhstan or some other Soviet state, right? And when it all broke up, right, and when it fell apart, when the empire fell apart, clothes was one of the biggest problems, right, in shortages. Now, that meant that we had to make our own clothes, and we would get linen and other stuff, and the women in the family would be making you know from socks to everything. My grandmother and my aunt used to knit socks, and you would sell that for quite high price, right, during this time, because there's a shortage. Just another crazy example that was told, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, they did travel to Russia during that period, right? And as they were going through the border, the Russian border guards were buying their clothes. So it looks like in that part of Russia, they also didn't have undergarments, like white undergarments that you put under your shirt. And they were scared because they were not sure what was going on, right? And they were pulling the packages that they were going with through the border. They got stopped, and they were pulling out clothes. And the guards, as soon as they found the white undergarment, it turns out they were searching for it, and they were asking, "Will you sell this to me? Will you sell this to me?" And they were paying high price of it. So eventually, in the next visit that they did for Russia, when they were going into Ukraine and Russia from Romania, they actually bought a bunch of white undergarments, which looks like it was produced somewhat in Romania. And they did that, and they didn't have to like bring money for the trip, because they could sell that at the border at such a high price that cost was enough for the whole trip. So it was crazy, right? When there's shortages, crazy things happen. But one of the biggest problem was working boots, working clothes, because people had to go back to the fields, and we didn't have gloves, we didn't have tools. So there will be a new allocation of the economy, and the work clothes were missing. So that would have been probably the best investment regarding clothes and outfits.
I just spent $300 today on welding gloves, and I am
Right.
absolutely certain they don't come from America. I mean, it's ridiculous. If that supply chain is ever shut off between us and Taiwan and China, because that's usually where everything comes from, we might experience that. We really might experience some kind of
We're at the brink
work
of it
glove
for sure.
shortage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get off of clothes, I have been having people beating me up in the comments about wearing Carhartt shirts because Carhartt has been forcing their employees to put stuff in their body that they don't want to put in their body, which is repulsive. So I'm in the middle of changing my wardrobe. It just happens that 90% of my wardrobe is Carhartt because it fit good and I thought it was American and it's the good working man's clothes, but they went and screwed it up for me. This happens to be Martin's Brothers Made in America welding shirt. Fitted. I had it tailored. Yeah, I wear tailored welding shirts. Anyway, all right. So the next question I got is what was gasoline like? How was it getting back and forth to work or whatever you had to do? The price of oil, how was it?
Well, I just on close, and yeah, I do believe that you should put your money where your heart is as well. So if you believe in that, I congratulate you. We should do that more often. We
What do
should.
you do when it's 90% of your clothes? I can't throw them all away. I'm going to have to.
Well, the future, what counts, what's done is
Yeah,
done.
right.
So make the change that you can without going bankrupt for sure. Right. Regarding gasoline, actually, gasoline is one of those things that you cannot do much against, right? We, of course, had huge shortages of gasoline. The price of gasoline went up so much that many, like, there was always like one relative who had the car. Everyone else's car was just left in the garage. We didn't, not many people had cars in Romania during communism, so you can imagine that we didn't have cars that many. However, what happened was that we carpooled, and sometimes in a car you would see 7, 8, 9 people in each other's lap, and that is how we would go. Or in the back of the trucks, we didn't have too much trucks, but it was very, very hard to get gasoline. So you would pay for your trip, and then many families would have to save money up until the weekend to have just a liter of gasoline, so that you could bring like the pig back from the farm in the trunk of your car to where you could slaughter it in the city, in the center of the city. So you need gasoline at some point, and you have to make the money for it somehow. But it's hard actually when there's a price control put on it. It just becomes hard to get, because shortages will develop in the supply chain, because there's no price to carry that, right? So any price control just made shortage. Eventually, they lifted the price control, and that meant that gasoline was available for a very, very high price. So we walked a lot. We walked miles and miles and miles, and the price of bicycles went up, right? So gasoline, you cannot even store that much, and we didn't have electric cars. But even if we would have had, electricity was expensive as well, and the parts was horrible. So what people did was they try to use cars, like very simple Romanian Dacia 1310 cars that you could actually fix yourself, right? Or maybe you knew someone who would fix it, not complex electronics. And you would have 1 or 2 cars. One would be actually working, and 2 would be sitting somewhere that you took for parts, right? So people improvise and they do whatever they can. Now, other people went to Ukraine, where they didn't have that bad of a gas shortage. They installed new tanks in the back of the cars, totally unsafe way. And they it was a black market, and they would be buying there, selling there. Just an interesting story. My cousin was in the army, right? And the army had gasoline, but actually people sneaked into the army compound with weapons against the soldiers and stole the gasoline, right? So that is the level of shortage what we had in gasoline. And the guards, basically the soldiers who were patrolling, knew when these people came, they would rather not do anything, because they were crazy, right? And they would make a hole in the huge tanks and got a couple of gallons or 100 liters or so, and by the morning all of the rest of the gasoline was flowing out. So by the morning that they got discovered, sometimes guards were paid off. It was horrible, absolutely horrible.
You're talking about cars being low tech, easy to work on. That
Yes,
doesn't exist anymore. It,
unfortunately.
it,
Well, it
it
does
makes
exist
me
for
think of
me,
the
but
chip shortage.
that's
It
why I
makes me,
have a really old car.
well, I do too. I drive, well, old being still, most of my vehicles are 2000 7.3 liter
Yeah, I mean,
diesels,
that's
you
still
know,
usable and
it's,
workable. Yeah.
but it makes me think of the chip shortage. This is a big problem. We could have a ton of cars that are unusable if we don't get these chips. Uh, wow, you really kind of jogged my memory on it. That's some really good information. You people listening, listen to that. They were They were using vehicles like bicycles, mopeds, I imagine, motorcycles,
Yes.
those kind of things that didn't take much fuel. Because if we do have some kind of debacle, or maybe when, some kind of debacle between Ukraine and Russia, and we slap some kind of arbitrary sanctions on Russia and they supply our oil and gas, oil could go to the moon. Oil could make crypto look goofy. I mean, it really could happen like that. And we have tried to shut our production down here. I work in the natural gas and oil field every day, and there's they're doing their best to put a tremendous amount of pressure on us to not be self-sufficient in oil and gas. And it'll be probably short-lived. I'm sure they shut our oil off, we'll have to do something, and we've got plenty under our feet. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off base. I know you've got things to do, and I've also got some things to do. I want to keep it short. Is there anything else you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, keep it optimistic. Like there's some time and you can prepare and you can help your neighbors later on and educate your friends, educate your family and do, wake the people who want to be woken and do what you can now because I do believe we still have time and there's tremendous opportunities in this as well, right? So make the right steps and prepare mentally, physically, spiritually, very important, and look forward for a brighter future afterwards. There's always in history, people tend to be good and we tend to go over through these periods, but afterwards we usually come out in the positive. So look out for good stuff maybe down the line. A couple of years later, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be short. We're optimistic. I love it. Y'all have an awesome day. I will see you tomorrow. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I always forget. I always forget the ending. Listen, I've got to get you guys there on March 5th to Dallas to see us because we're going to be there. We're going to be hanging out, hugging each other. It's going to be awesome. I've already had the coronavirus, so I don't have it anymore. So we'll be able to get together and have some drinks and just hang out. The Economic Ninja is going to be there. Joe Brown with Heresy Financial, Andy Scheckman. I'm going to be talking real estate. It's going to be an awesome, fun time. I'm going to leave the link in the description below and I'll pin it in the comments. Have an awesome day. Thanks, RPod, for coming on. We will surely do it again.
Thank you very much.
Later.